Welcome to the Nevcast, where three bros talk business, art, justice, and the pursuit of Jesus.
Any day above ground is a good day.
Get ready to laugh, cry, and kiss 30 minutes goodbye with Peter Nevland,
Dave Nevland,
and
Rashid. All right, welcome to the Nevcast.
welcome back. That's right. Here I am.
You're Peter, and I'm Dave.
I'm Peter. That's right. I almost forgot my name.
Don't forget.
We have Jason Everman with us.
Jason
we're missing
Everman this morning. Yeah,
We're sad. We're missing Rashid. He had to. He's off at work today.
Yeah.
And so next time we'll hopefully see him next time. But anyway, we have Jason with us.
And he does feel like this does feel like three bros.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and the other thing is we were going to have you on, Jason, about about a month ago.
That's right. Yeah,
but
that's
we
right.
couldn't.
Yeah,
because
I think it's been a few months. It's been like, hey, how about this month? And then something happened. And then how about next month? And then it freezes over. And
Right.
Well, and the funny thing was like you
have
a ministry to homeless people. You work with homeless people, and yet you were almost homeless a month ago. So how close did the fire? There was a fire out near your home. How close did it get to your home?
It was about 4 miles away. I think at the
4
furthest point, but. Out there, because it was so devastated years ago, over a decade ago,
It
they're
goes
pretty
fast.
gun shy.
Yeah.
Sure.
And right now it's dry. You can drive all the way out to Bastrop, and there's like little fires where I think people are flicking cigarettes. It's so
I've seen.
It's so sensitive. And
I've
so,
seen them.
And when you got like pine trees everywhere, and there's needles, a foot thick everywhere, regardless if you're raking them up every day or not, they're going to be there.
Right.
It's just kindling, and so I think a lot of people are pretty concerned with. I saw some people raking them up into big piles, and I was like, I really don't know what's better, thin and low, or this huge bonfire, that's possible next to your house. So I was just trying to make sure it was away enough to where, I don't know, it would still take an act of God. But our house that we're in now is a survivor. Yeah.
Yeah.
It survived the first fires. Okay. I mean, it was literally across the street from it, and everything just right past us was all gone.
Dude,
and so we're in one of the few surviving houses on that street.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did you actually have to evacuate?
We were close. I mean, they were telling people to be prepared this
That's really close. That the fire happened right across the street.
No.
No, the first
back
time.
10 years ago. Fire, the original big old that burned 60,000 acres, something ridiculous. That was right across the street from this house, and it burned all the way down into Tahitian, and like all of those houses are new. Yeah. And then and we just happened to end up in there.
Wow.
Total miracle.
Right.
Well, so welcome. I'm glad that everything was protected and your family is protected. And
at that point you start thinking, what guitar do I really means the most? I mean, this is after the kids are safe and all of that, of course. I'm not trying to be like conceited, but
a couple of drum
sets.
sets.
You look at it and go, man, these are all blessings. Which one is do I grab? That will keep me on the other side if something happens. Keep inspiring me to play.
That's funny. So you're a musician. And you play guitar. You play drums too, right?
I play drums.
You can run some sound.
I started playing drums when a friend of mine, or a friend of my father's, I should say, when I was about 14, had this drum set that a friend of his left over at his house for like 2 years, and he's like, I've been asking him to pick it up, and he won't. So if you want it, it's yours. And my dad, at first was like, no, he's good. I'm like, what? No, this is cool. So I got to take it out, but my dad made me keep it at his house, right? No. So I could only play it like every other weekend when I'd visit my dad. So I'd try to get in as much as possible. I'm sure he loved it. But then, man, I heard the original Nirvana track after church one night. Actually, he's a family member now. It's so weird, but
the original
Back in the Wind,
Teen Spirit Smells Like Teen Spirit?
He played it on cassette. Nobody had really heard of it, not much yet. They were still semi-underground, but breaking through. And I just remember I was sitting in that van. He goes, yo, guys, this was after our choir practice, which was our youth group at Southern Baptist Church. And so we went out to this van, and he pops in this tape. He goes, watch this. And he goes, this is some cool music. And this guy was a country guy. So I've found out now, it's like for some reason country and metal, they love it. Like
they go
some
together.
People, somehow. But and so he puts in this tape, and all I remember is ding, 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 and I just heard all those nuances between the chords, little eeks and squeaks that normally they try to get out, and I fell in love with it. And then the drum comes in, and you're like, whoa, what is that beating in my chest? And I thought, man, I think I can play that. I want to play like that, and so that's what inspired me. And then God kind
the
of
drums.
twisted that into being a worship leader.
That's
Yeah,
great.
because it
And
seems simple. Because it seemed simple at that
Yeah,
time.
and
It
if you
wasn't
think
so
about
blitzed
it,
out and
a lot of
glammed
his
out.
songs are
Right.
melodic. They're nursery rhymish, and at that time, a lot of Christian music was melodic and pretty simple. Now we have Hillsong, and they have ballads and all these things that chord changes galore. But back then, it was like you knew 4 chords, you could play.
That's true.
50 worship songs. pretty
Unless
easy.
unless the song "I'm abandoned to the
Yeah, that's got
captain
crazy chord
of
changes.
the mighty-"
But that's way earlier.
That was
the
even
gospel,
earlier.
man. Yeah,
But so
But you're also a vocalist. I've sung with you before.
yeah, that was my passion from the very beginning.
and you're not a quiet vocalist.
I've always been accused of having big lungs, and,
So-
and when there's passion behind it, it's hard.
This is a metaphorical thing that's true about you too.
Yeah.
well, and most people would think, "Oh, wait, he's a musician." I thought you said that he does stuff with the homeless. Like, aren't most musicians homeless? So how does that? I mean, that's
For a while,
That's the
yeah.
perception of It's like I remember when I left Motorola as an engineer, people were like, "Oh, when you get done doing the starving artist thing," and I was like, "Well, why would I ever starve? Like, you think why do you think I'm gonna starve?" But it's hard to make it as a musician and stuff. So how did that? So tell us about what's the name of what you do with the homeless? How did that come about?
Every Monday night, and then every Monday night, you can just tell us what happened like last night.
Over the past almost 11 years now, every Monday night we go out near the UT campus. There's a parking lot now that we meet. That's right beside the restaurant Kava. And it used to be, it's located, old school people would know, the Campus House of Prayer. The Chop House was right there.
Well,
And it was a
that's
Jack in the Box.
A couple block away, I think.
Okay.
No. This is the one where basically it's that parking lot right across from the East Mall.
Right down the street. We're
it's
right
down the street
across
a
from
little
the
bit?
Methodist church, and
Okay.
we basically tell people to get there. It's 25th and Guadalupe.
25th and Guadalupe.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
gotcha.
and really, we used to just park near the Chop House, and originally we would walk like a 6-block radius, and we had wagons, and we started taking the wagons because we were carrying so much stuff, and so we would get people in like little groups, and so you would dive into that little group, get to talk to people. Like our whole thing to me from the very beginning is like anybody can hand out a sandwich, and I'm not down in that. Anybody can do those things, but for us, it was like we were specifically told to get to know people, to start to be like relational on purpose.
What's the end goal? What's the end goal?
To figure out where people are, how we can support. It's amazing what a little hope and some encouragement can unlock in someone's life. We've learned that there's a million ways to become homeless, so there's not any pigeonhole of this happens and this is what makes you homeless. I mean, I could go on and on about the stories, and this is why God wants us to be out there, is we're learning their story. They're being seen, right? They're in a place where the enemy has worked so hard against their potential and who they were meant to be, that he's been going after some of these people their whole life, right? From a child, and just like he did me. I know that's his plan. He knows, he's smart enough to know, man, this person's got potential. He sees it in them, and immediately starts using wounded people to wound that person. So their view of the Father or their potential or their calling is forever conscrewed. They're wasting 50 years of their life trying to get back on track from the original wound.
Yeah.
And so we're going out there.
You're talking about trauma.
I'm talking about anybody.
But I'm just
trauma,
saying,
yes.
it's trauma because what happened, and it's interesting what happens actually in trauma. I've been learning about this. In trauma, the neural connections that you have in your brain
It's severed.
between prefrontal cortex, amygdala, they get severed, and they actually get frayed and fragmented. And what's so cool is that telling your story and having someone listen to and really listen and tune their emotions and empathize with your story and be in it with you is the actual mechanism that heals those severed neural connections. And when you are attentive to what's going on inside you, being aware of what's going on inside you, that actually then those connected neural connections get covered with this, what's called a myelin sheath. And that makes you 7,000 times faster to respond with your prefrontal cortex rather than your amygdala. So that means in
Wow.
the middle of a situation, whenever trauma comes again, you're 7,000 times more likely to make a good decision rather
Gosh.
than to freak out and either fight or flight
Man.
type of
Well,
thing.
and that's
so
where
you're listening to people's stories.
Phys- Physiology
and that's
of
where
healing
you
right
find
there.
a lot of people is they're in this middle of their path, and they've ended up in this season of their life. Some people, it's we've met 10 years ago and we're still ministering to, but there's some people you meet one time or a handful of times, and then the door opens. You've encouraged a miracle, and by no means do I believe we're out there like reinventing the wheel. We're just a part of the ingredients, of everybody else that's sowing into them. But the one thing that I always hear from people, and I'm grateful because they're seeing our hearts, right? And especially after we got COVID and we were taken out for like a month or two.
Yeah.
When we came back, the appreciation that has been lavished on us is just like the way they're vocalizing, like, you guys are different. Like, not saying that anybody's doing it wrong, but what I continually hear is everywhere I go, it's us and them. Like, you feel it. They're behind the counter. We're being served.
Yeah.
But with you guys, it's just all of us. We're just hanging out. You care. You love us. And I feel like I can tell you anything. And that's what we've kind of prided ourselves on, is like we needed thick skin. We needed to get to know people's, ugliness and look past all what I call symptoms of a wounded heart. And it's not my job to knock away all the symptoms and make a heroin addict not a heroin addict, or make somebody, forgive somebody. What I felt called to early on was what I call loving people. And to me, it's a broad, it means different things to everyone. Every single person is different. And that's the thing about homeless ministry, is it's sticky sometimes. It takes commitment, because to make those connections, to continue to walk somebody through that next breakthrough, they kind of need that cheerleader, because from any moment to the next, any minute to the next, any day especially, or week, any number of things can happen. There's new drugs on the street. There's new trauma. There's new anything. And so when I get an opportunity on the street where somebody's heart is flayed wide open, and I feel like God's putting that attention on it, then I know to feed into it. I mean, back in the day, it was nothing for me to leave there at 2:00 in the morning, after getting there at 6, just because there would be these moments where this person was lucid. And, that's where the relationship comes in, is because you'll talk to the same person for weeks, and they'll tell you every time, they'll tell you what you want to hear sometimes. I just quit right before you got here. I've been really good today. And you don't want to discourage that, because what they're thinking about it, right? It's on their mind. They know what people want to hear, but sometimes it's harder to do that.
Yeah.
And so they'll tell you that to keep that relationship, like, I want somebody to be proud of me because you're continuing. And so you look through that and you're like, man, keep going, bro. How can I pray for you? We take a prayer book, and anybody that will let me write down their prayer request, I write for it. I write it down, and it's been a powerful tool because God's answered them so many times. But what happens is they'll let me pray for them right there, and they'll share their heart with me. Hey, I've got an addiction. I want to quit heroin, or I want to quit drinking, or whatever. I'll be like, man, can I pray that off of you right now? And sometimes it'll be like, sure. Then they'll welcome it, and then you have that moment to just go in there for them and be their advocate, prayer-wise, spiritual-wise, and begin to knock things off their life that they weren't even aware they needed to get rid of, But they're in that moment, I look at it as their heart is receptive. How much Jesus got in, that's up to him. Sure. But I look at it in that moment, their heart's been receptive. They're open to this moment, and we have to take that chance. Yeah. And with some people, it's been a long relational road, and you're like, you keep having those rooting moments, because you'll see them make breakthroughs. I mean, we've had people go all the way into housing, have everything for them, and there's just cycle that's not broken, of unworthiness or ashamed, or you just get, you get a little bit caught up, and you're like, it scares you, because a lot of people look like, I'm here now, but how do I get all the way over there to paying insurance and having car insurance and getting to work and now having to pay a rent? So what I try to encourage is the one step at a time. Like, look, I can't tell you myself how you get through all the steps to get to where you need to be or where you want to be. But I know this, if you're willing for him to step into your situation, I'm not going to teach you any special prayer, because he will simply, if you just go, I need you. Father, I need you. Or Jesus, show yourself. Or I need you, Jesus. Just something simple. I tell him, you'll be amazed at the opportunity that you're opening up simply from inviting him in, because he paid for the same thing that I'm walking in, that you can walk in. Right. And until they're encouraged to know that exists and it's available, They're under the thumb of that, the atmosphere that the enemy has put them under, the guys, the thinking, these cycles. That's why I tell people how often so many people will get picked up for doing drugs, right? Or doing a drug-related crime that nobody's injured or anything. It's really a means to an end for them. They'll get picked up. They'll get put in jail. It might be the third or fourth time. They may go away for 2 years. They've been separated from that addiction. You would think, man, he's been done. They've been clean. He's done. They get out. They start doing a little bit, and then something comes, a wave comes, something tragic happens, and what happens? The door opens right back up. Right. They're right back in the same situation. And what I tell people is when you take a drug addict or something and just spank their hand and throw them away from it, you haven't broken the cycle. No. You're just punishing this choice.
Yeah, you're not.
Why are they making that choice?
Sure. That's right.
Why is the thought process there? What in their life are they covering, or what are they, whatever it is for each person. And so we never deal with it. We just spank them, get them away from it for a minute, and then as soon as they're faced with that choice again, the enemy runs back, right? Because they never broke that cycle.
Yeah, right.
But if we had more of a rehabilitation, more people that are called to speak into people's life and be that encouragement, I mean, it breaks so many boundaries down for people. Being seen.
Yeah.
I had a guy last night, you were talking about last night, our outreach, he just would not leave me alone in a good way. He just kept talking my ear off. I'm looking at all these people I'm trying to talk to and touch base with, but his heart just kept pouring out, and he was just telling me, he goes, I remember this was our Christmas outreach he was talking back to just like a month ago. He goes, I remember coming out, and you had a family with you, and they brought their kids, and they weren't scared for their kids to serve us. And it was a family from our church. And I said, yeah. And he goes, and you bring your kids, and you're not scared for them to look at us. He goes, you don't understand. I've seen families pick up their children and walk the other way. I've seen kids trained by their family to look the other way if they see somebody dirty or something. He goes, your family, your kids, those people you brought, they didn't do that. Yeah. And I felt welcomed.
Wow. Right.
Wow.
And he goes, and that's why I've been coming back. And he goes, and then he told me about the food we're bringing and just all these things that he's loving about us. But he kept saying, he goes, y'all are the real deal. Y'all see us, and that's the thing that we've heard so many times is there's so many of these people.
Oh yeah.
That are out there, and whatever reason, whatever cycle, whatever season, whatever choice had got them there, it's so far away from where they should be,
right.
And people think, well, it's just because you're lazy and you're addicted, go get a job. But we've literally walked people through the process of getting their paperwork together, getting their social security card, and it's like, you got to have this to get this, but you got to have this to get this. And it's like this endless circle, and it could take months and months sometimes, or there may be estranged from a family member that abused them or that they're running from. And now they're having to contact that person because they're in charge of their birth certificate and they don't know where to, so there's all these different sticky situations that people don't see. And you're like, by the time that this process gets started over and over again. I mean, I've literally seen city workers being told to come and grab stuff, throw it in the back of city trucks. I've watched this with my own eyes, and then they go down the street somewhere and throw all their stuff away. Wow. Well, in that stuff, their day backpacks when they're traveling around, they usually keep their, supplies or IDs and stuff to get things.
Right.
Well, now they've just gotten all the process done. This is their fourth time to get an ID, and now they're right back to square one.
Right.
And so after that happens a few times, it's pretty depressing. And they go, this is all I am. This is who I am. This is what God wants me to be.
I'm going to have to just make it at this. Yeah.
What I kind of tell people is where my heart behind it is there's people that are in, not just, I don't want to say churches, it's everywhere, but and it's like nobody's doing it wrong, but what I hear from people is that when you're in a building or whatever, they're always wondering what's on the other side of that, what they have to jump through to get the means to the end, right, to get their need met. And so there's some places that will make you sit through something or make you hear, a sermon or do whatever to get that out of the way before you get what you need. And so I'm not saying that that they're not getting the gospel, because they are, but I meet a lot of people that it's building that block around their heart because that's still just a means to an end. And what I feel like has stood out to us is he wanted us to show the gospel. Enough people quote scriptures, enough people will hit you in the... I've literally been sitting on the sidewalk and somebody walked by, scream scriptures at us, thinking I'm with them, and then walk off. And I'm thinking, good Lord, what is that doing? You just threw a brick around their heart.
Right.
But there's not a lot of people that are willing to get down and dirty and show the gospel. Like, embrace somebody that doesn't look like you. Talk to somebody that's lived a different life than you. It may look ugly, it may be sticky, but you're carrying something that could be their breakthrough. And so we've got, we're out there loving on people where they're at, looking past all these ugly issues, but seeing the gold inside them that God put there and breathed there and knew that was still going to be there, even in the place that they're at in this moment. Yeah. And then we're here going, look, I recognize that gold that's still in you, that you still have a purpose and a plan as long as you're still breathing. There's hope for you. That's right. And so they're like, yeah, right. At first, right, they're like, oh, you're just saying that. Yeah, but that's where the commitment and the consistency comes in. They can show up. Right. You're going to show up every week. And if they got a question or if they got something else that you can pray about for breakthrough or whatever. But the cool thing is there's enough people that know enough people that are getting breakthroughs that they see God doing it. Right. And it's not us. We just had to be willing to be the hands and feet. But when we're writing down those prayer requests and then we actually get a donation that week that we can go the next week and give it to the person that asked for it, I can't tell you how many times they've gone, you didn't have to do that. I was just told. I was like, I didn't. Somebody literally gave us this like an hour before we came, and I knew it was yours because you're the one that asked for it. Right. And their eyes light up. Right. And then they begin to think, maybe there's something to this, right? And so it's not on me. God's beginning to show himself to them in the craziest, sometimes the most minute ways, but to them, it's a thought process and a reality and a realization that they weren't taught to look for. They heard about it. They know all the good words, right? They've been thrown, the Bible scriptures, but if you don't know those precepts, if you're not taught what to do, then those things are like tools you don't know how to use. Right. If you're not raised under the same precepts we are, the same thing with like homosexuality and all that stuff. We see a lot of orphans that aged out of foster care that were never adopted, that they were a paycheck to a family, and once they're old, they give you two options: walk out into life and do it on your own, or we'll help you sign up for the military. Well, if you don't want to go in the military, guess what? You learn how to live life on your own, and then you start survival mode day one. Wow. And then you get stuck in that. And I'm convinced survival mode, living in that, is just as hard to break, if not harder, than any other addiction that you've ever known. Because once you're into that, that to survive day to day, breath to breath, meal to meal, it's hard to go to like any sort of, I've got it set. It's already set for me. Well, there's any kind of supply that's more than just me living day by day, and this is all I am. And so you're going out there taking hope. We're taking a fresh meal. We're meeting the physical man first, and then continuing a relationship to see how we can pray with you, partner with you, love on you. We've had salvations, we've had breakthrough. There's some people that are so hard to the church, but they'll go, I've had a Satanist tell me, he goes, I hate church, but for a Christian, you're cool as hell, man. And I was like, bro, I feel you. I know what you mean, so I'll take it. But it's kind of a oxymoron. But
I know it's not. You haven't found the process. It's not about the process. It's obvious that it's your heart and it's your passion and it's your anointing, and that is breaking through, and you're relentless. It's relentless, reckless love. Well, right, but it's not the process. But it would be cool to know. Okay, just walk us through what you do going out there every week. Okay,
through the week, we're getting donations. We're getting people calling us. Like right now, we're trying to house a couple.
Not just money, like stuff.
Yeah, stuff. It's
Are you going to pick up a bed frame from my house tomorrow?
Yeah, every week we need a meal provider, and some people have taken that in chunks. Like every first week, that's my meal, and they'll take it for 6 months, and then we'll have a fifth Monday that nobody's covered, and we'll put out the word and see if somebody wants to jump in.
And then make enough food for how many people?
Right now, we're aiming at 50, but back in the day, we've served up to 150 or more, and then as low as like 5 or 10, depending on the season. But
so you take them so you get somebody provides a meal, and then on that Monday, what time?
It's every day. Every Monday's been different for 10 years, but the majority of the time what we're doing, we're getting things together. We're going out and picking up last minute donations. The meal's fresh, so either us or we have another member that is a core member for us, Deborah, what's up? That can go and pick things up in certain other parts of the Metroplex if we can't be there. But we get a meal ready to go. We take toiletries, supplies, anything that they could need for personal hygiene care, stuff like that. We'll take seasonal clothing. If it's cold, we're taking out coats, we're taking out blankets, we're taking out things like that. If it's warm, flip-flops, shorts, T-shirts, you know what I mean? So we're trying to go with the seasons.
And this is happening in Austin, or is
this is all happening in Austin.
So you said the Metroplex.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
because we pick up things from people everywhere.
You pick up stuff from like
we'll go
DFW.
anywhere. If God, I always say, if He gives us the gas, we'll get there.
All right, there's so much going on with this episode. We can't finish it and fit it into this one episode, so we're going to complete it next week. Join us, Nevcast.